Hello, and I'm sitting down today with my colleague Zohar. You're a legal engineer at Diconium, and maybe you can introduce yourself briefly and also tell us a little bit what a legal engineer actually does at Diconium, especially.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Zohar, working for Diconium as a legal engineer in our team. And yes, what does it mean, this position? What do we do? So legal engineers, they operate on the interface between specialized departments such as product, business, project management, and legal. And we basically help to avoid legal obstacles already at the stage of developing, planning, conceptualizing, and building tech products. We like to say that we translate the legal obligations into operational steps that help the customer to have a smooth and fast legal approval. What we also do is that we help to conceptualize and design compliance programs for the client, especially in the area of data and tech regulation.
And I mean, that of course means that you have to almost always have to be up to date regarding the legal regulations. Maybe you can tell, the people which legal regulations are the most important right now when it comes to working with AI.
Yeah, so I can give a short answer to this, especially if we are talking about the European Union. So we have the EU AI Act, which is the principal dedicated regulation for concerning AI technologies. This regulation is also supplemented by some ancillary documents such as guidelines and codes of conduct that are developed by the European Commission and the EU AI Office as non-binding helpful documents to help with compliance. But that's about it. It's a very broad and complex regulation, and we're still in the process of understanding what it actually means for companies.
And you mentioned the EU AI Act, but what would you say, for whom is it really important? Who are the people who really need to know what's going on with the EU AI Act?
Yeah, well, you can think about the AI Act as a sort of product safety regulation, right? So we have a bunch of cool technologies and they can do like really useful things. But at the same time, these technologies also introduce new risks to natural persons. This is you and me and every other human being that is interacting with an AI system. And these systems can pose some risks to our health, safety, and fundamental rights. So the idea of the AI Act is, on the one hand, to enable innovation, yet at the same time preserve and protect us against these risks that might occur. So this is the compromise that you try to strike with this regulation.
Yeah, and of course AI is evolving super fast, and legal regulations usually take a bit more time to evolve. How is AI as a term defined in the EU AI Act? What are they talking about when they are talking about AI? Is it the same what we are talking about in the business context?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The AI is basically dedicated to a certain industry. It has some relevant definitions, but it doesn't define all the concepts inside. So sometimes we need to refer to some more professional or external concepts. The regulated actors are basically developers of AI technologies and deployers of AI technology. So these two types of actors are defined. but also we have definitions to these things, these technologies that are subject to regulation. And the AI Act includes two very important definitions for groups of technologies that are at the center of regulation. And these are AI systems on the one hand, and then in parallel, it regulates general purpose AI models or GPIs. So each of these concepts has a definition that could be a little bit elaborate and compact, but this is what we need to look at when we try to think about what is regulated. So, are you interested to know how an AI system is defined in the law?
Yes.
Okay, so so you have 6 to 7 parameters or factors in the definition that need to be fulfilled in order to see, okay, we have an AI system that is regulated by the AI Act. So we talk about a machine-based system that is designed to operate with a varying level of autonomy, right? It may exhibit adaptiveness after deployment, and for explicit or implicit objectives, it infers from the input it receives how to generate outputs. And these outputs could be predictions, recommendations, content, or decisions that influence the virtual or physical reality.
So also related to generative AI too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it generates something, and then this is the output, and this output is has some sort of it changes the environment. This is not so difficult to prove. The most important things, if you want to think about AI system, is 3 main factors: autonomy, which means that it is independent of human intervention; adaptiveness, also important, which means that it's self-learning; and inference. So it's capable of deriving patterns, models, algorithms, and other output, from the input data. And a very good example is machine learning technologies. So this is more or less what we know, but a little bit more detail.
Yeah, of course, it's a super complex topic. And you said they also define AI system, and I heard there are different AI systems with different risk categories. So they distinguish between different, kinds of systems. Maybe you can give me a brief overview on that topic.
Yeah. So happy to do that. AI systems are basically classified in terms, the idea of the regulation is risk-based. So it's a risk-based approach to safety regulation, which means that the higher the risk is, the more obligations you need to comply with in order to mitigate the risk. And according to this logic, you have categories inside the EU AI Act that is saying, okay, you have a bunch of technologies, we call them prohibited systems. So in this area, you find all kinds of systems that might do social scoring or detect emotions in a work or education place. You can also have systems that do predictive policing. So I feed the system with a lot of data, and the system tells me if you are likely to be a criminal or to conduct some criminal acts. Facial recognition on large scale databases. These things are prohibited. And then the next level is what we call high risk AI systems. So these systems are not prohibited per se, but because of the way they are built or deployed, they pose some high risk to the rights that we talked about before and interests. For example, in the area of recruiting if an AI system is making decisions about hiring, but obviously safety components in cars or in airplanes, systems that do biometrics analysis or critical infrastructure, obviously trains, like high risk, obviously.
Yeah.
And the next category would be limited risk systems. There are systems that still controlled by the regulation, but do not qualify as prohibited or high risk. And then we have a fourth category, which is like I just talked briefly about. These are systems that require a specific transparency requirement. So they require transparency about the fact that the output was created by a machine, not by a human. So this is mostly relevant for interactive systems like chatbots and the sort of systems that basically talk to you.
So, for example, when I have the customer support service in an online shop, that I know, is it a real human right now responding, or is it a chatbot?
Exactly. So they say, hello, my name is Bob, and I'm here to help you with all the questions that you have regarding the drilling machine that you want to buy. So sometimes it's important to know that you are not talking to a human being.
Cool. So I got a good overview. And another really large topic also, I mean, in our company, but also everywhere else, is currently agentic AI. And maybe you have some information about how agentic AI especially gets regulated, or are there maybe some points when I build some AI agent which I should be aware of or do some research?
Okay. Yeah. Agentic AI, it's a very big topic for the industry, also in research and everywhere else. Everybody's talking about it, and it's a valid question. Is it regulated? How is it regulated? What does it mean in terms of compliance? Very important for industry players that either develop, build themselves, or use agentic AI in their commercial settings. So, as opposed to AI systems and GPIs, the law does not really define AI agents. Actually, if you look at the law, it's a very large piece of legislation. The word agent does not appear even once in this regulation. So we need to basically turn to general, more technical definitions of agentic AI in order to more or less understand what we're talking about and then see how the law can be applied to agentic AI. So what is an AI agent? So technical persons would say that this is a software entity that is capable of perceiving its environment through sensors or data input. And this entity makes decisions based on those observations and perceptions through AI techniques. And then the important thing is also that it can act upon its environment through actuators, we call them, to achieve a specific objective or a goal. So if you want to shorten it to 3 keywords, you can say that agentic AI agent is basically having a high level of autonomy. It has perception and action capacities, and it has a specific goal that is defined by those who built it. Yeah, so Tony, you were asking now that you understand what agentic AI is or what an AI agent is, how is it regulated? We said it is not defined in the law, but it's still captured by this regulation. So if we take a general purpose AI model, for example, and add agents to this model or to an LLM, we basically build another layer, add components, and we turn this model into, technically speaking, an AI system. So then we're back into the define area and we know what to do. Or we can call it also GPI system. But in the end, it is regulated in principle according to the general rules of AI systems, meaning we need to investigate what level of risk. Do I have a prohibited system, or is it a high risk or not? And then according to the level of risk, you have the respective requirements in the law: documentation, quality control, post market supervision, and so forth.
Last question to AI agents. I see more and more people sharing how they are using AI agents as their assistants, responding to emails autonomously, or be it the LinkedIn comment, being written by the agent. And my question is, legal-wise, can an agent act on your behalf legally? Yeah. Is it compliant or not?
Yeah. This question actually triggers other areas of the law that are not, technically speaking, AI regulation. It's also more in the area of contract law and also agency law. So the general question that we ask is, in how far somebody or something else that is not me can bind me legally in case of a statement or in a contractual situation when there is a price offer or an acceptance or all kinds of conditions. So there is not a short answer to this question, but let's say that I give you a power of attorney to buy in my name a car. And assuming that the power of attorney is valid, according to the local agency contract law, you go and you sign the contract on my behalf, and I'm bound to pay the purchase price. And contract law would recognize your action, would attribute your action to me, and I will have to pay the dealer the purchase price. It could act relatively similarly also with automatic agents. So it depends on the way they're programmed and what access they have to which accounts and to which data sets. An AI agent can be programmed in such a way that this agent is concluding transactions or even making commitments in my name that would bind me later. Obviously, as it is the case in law, you have all kinds of exceptions and specific areas, for example, consumer protection. If we have a consumer protection situation, you are a consumer, so there might be a higher protection to you, not to be bound by things that you do not want to do. But generally speaking, this is controlled by local laws. We don't have a general law that is covering the consequences of using automatic agents. And there is a lot to feel in terms of maybe a regulation or case law before we understand. I would assume that, or I would advise to assume that if you give the agent all the access, you also should be ready to bear the consequences of what the agent has done. Sometimes you have the area of mistakes or technical errors, but there also it's a case-by-case analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so since you talked about an agent doing also contractual work, your personal opinion, would you let an AI sign a contract for you?
Depends for what. Yeah, so again, I would apply the risk-based approach also in my personal life in this case. So if it's a big deal, if it's something expensive, or if it's something that has a lot of impact on my life, on my financial situation, I would like to be the one who makes a decision, or at least to have a control between decision and execution. So the agent can do all the research and all the investigation and propose something. But I would introduce in this case what we call human in the loop. So this will be a person that looks at the decision made by the agent and approves or disapproves. And then be a little bit on the safe side, maybe with smaller things like buying snacks for the office. You can give the agent a budget and then they buy some some snacks for us.
And then we have just cucumbers.
Yeah, exactly.
And my last question is, which I was asking myself recently, who owns AI-generated code? I mean, we all know how many people use Cursor and similar tools. So who owns it?
Yeah, so who owns the output that is generated by AI technology, generative AI, what we call? This question was troubling a lot of people and disrupting a lot of industries recently. And the short answer exactly to your question is that according to the laws in Germany and other European countries, in order to be the author, in order to be the original rights holder in intangible production or work, you need to be a human being. So there is a famous story about the monkey who took selfies, really nice ones, and somebody tried to claim ownership in the photographs, but the artist was a monkey, so there was no copyright. The same applies to artificial intelligence. So the output that is generated by the artificial intelligence doesn't have a human author, so it doesn't have normal copyrights, and there is no human being or organization that can claim to be the author and have the original copyrights in the output. Obviously, you also have other questions about how to use and how the output was generated, how the model was trained. So this is another question. Maybe there was some sort of an infringement. The output can also be highly original. So it could look like a Rembrandt, or it could look like a very nice novel. But still, most experts would tell you that there is no copyright in this output.
Yeah, I think we also will see a lot of maybe news on that, because I guess there will be a lot of people going to the court, maybe with a pro or contra opinion on that. And yeah, let's see how it goes. So I thank you very much for joining me today. I really got some insights about your work as a legal engineer, and also see the value in all this big landscape to have someone who knows much more than anyone else what's going on in the regulations. So thanks.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.